I had done every diet that has come along in the last 20 years. I was convinced that I had to be fat adapted and low carb. And I would do that and I would lose 10 pounds like that and then go on a 10-mile run and bonk at mile 8 to the point where I couldn't even straighten up fully. And I was grumpy and I was cranky. I could smell the ammonia when I would do a bike ride indoors because I was just burning muscle. When 2025 rolled around in the off season, I really rededicated and it's made an enormous amount of difference. And I did drop 12 kilos, which I attribute to your program. It was just absolutely fantastic. And I feel better.
Hey legend, welcome back to the Triathlon Nutrition Academy podcast. I'm your host Taryn, advanced sports dietitian, triathlon nutrition specialist and semi-retired age group triathlete. Today I have a cracking guest with you. I'm chatting with TNA alumnus Edward Walsh, who is an emergency room physician, long course triathlete and one of the busiest humans you will ever hear from. Welcome to the podcast, Ed.
Thanks for having me, Taryn. It's an absolute thrill to be here. I'm very excited to talk with you. I've had a blast since I've joined TNA. It's been a game changer.
Amazing. How did you find this wonderful sport of triathlon right in the beginning?
Well, I was an athlete my whole life. I was a baseball player, and as an American, this may sound odd, but I was a rugby player. My folks were of Irish and French descent, so my brother and I grew up with rugby balls in our backyard.
Rugby league? Rugby union?
Union, 15s, and then 7s later. I played all through undergrad, played for my undergraduate team, and then played in medical school. And then when I graduated from medical school, unfortunately, as a resident, the work hour restrictions and the training is just too intense. And there's no way to play. We work every Saturday anyhow. So I couldn't play in matches. And so I went to medical school, graduated, went to residency, stopped playing rugby, started eating terrible foods because I was stuck in a hospital for 36 hours at a time.
Yeah.
Enormous stress. And my metabolism slowed. I was in my mid-30s, and as an inevitable consequence of aging, I began to slow down, and I got pretty chubby, actually, and really lost the thread with regards to fitness. And my wife started running, and she was not really an athlete. She looked like an athlete. She's an incredibly fit woman, and started doing these road races. And I went out for a run with her, and I could barely make it around this little 2-kilometer lake without just huffing and puffing. And I thought, man, something has got to give here. This is ridiculous. I've been an athlete my whole life. I still thought of myself as an athlete, high performance machine, starting 15 rugby, fullback, moved to fly half because I got old and my legs got slow. But, I was not. I got on a scale. I was 225 pounds. I couldn't fit in my clothing. And I said, something's got to change. So I started running. And that was really, really great. And I'd run cross country and track in high school. And so running was familiar to me. And my neighborhood has a local sprint triathlon. Literally, it's a small neighborhood in the middle of Spotsylvania, Virginia, middle of nowhere, beautiful lake. And so we would do a sprint triathlon. And some of the guys asked me, they knew I'd run a little bit. So they asked me to be part of the relay team. So my first triathlon was running a 5K, which I ran and walked. And that was the intro to the sport. I saw the pageantry. I saw the cool tech. I saw the swimming, which terrified me a little bit, even though I grew up on the beach. I grew up in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and I was a surfer. So I thought, oh, I'm cool in open water. I'll be fine as a swimmer. That was not the case. I nearly drowned the first time I tried to swim in a pool, a 4-foot deep pool. I still nearly managed to drown myself. But I was hooked. And so that was the on-ramp into the sport. And it's been the best decision I've made as an athlete my entire life.
Now look at you go.
I'm a middle of the packer, Taryn. I mean, you're very kind, but but I love the sport. I did it for fun and fitness, and that's always been my main focus. When I'm out on the course, I'll sometimes think, should I be pushing harder? And then, then I have this internal struggle. I got to go to work on Monday. I have patients who are depending on me, but since I've joined the Triathlon Nutrition Academy and rededicated myself. I really took everything as an athlete down to the studs last season. I had, after COVID, I just kept getting injured. I couldn't stay on point. I couldn't complete a training program. I was still not at a weight that I thought was appropriate for my frame. I was about 92 kilos and I had tried everything. I had done Atkins, South Beach, ketones. I mean, all the fancy bells and whistles. I'm a triathlete. Tried and true. So you can sell me anything. If you say it'll make me faster or it'll make me more aero, I will buy it. Full stop. I think all of us are like that to a certain extent. And then I listened to you on a TriDot podcast and I thought, who is this charming woman with this alluring accent. And then I began to listen to the actual words a little bit more. And I was just struck by how much they resonated with me as a scientist. I was like, this is somebody who gets it, who's objectively a scientist and is not trying to sell me anything or market anything. She is saying, you have to do the work, but I'm going to show you the way to do the work in such a way that you're going to have incredible objective results. And we're not talking about any fancy tech. We're talking about basic blocking and tackling, football analogy for the Americans out there. Just cut it back to basics and do the right things, be intentional, and the results will follow. And I bought in, and it's been a great ride ever since.
How do you fit it all in now? You talked before about being a resident and you just lose all the time in your life. But now that you're professional and you're a consultant and you've hit the pinnacle, but emergency medicine is one of the most demanding specialties and everything is so irregular. How do you actually fit in training for 3 sports in your week?
It's paradoxically, it's hard in a lot of ways, but it's also a little bit easier. My schedule is usually 4 on, 4 off. So as I look through sort of a mesocycle and I have my schedule for about 3 months, I can generally prioritize my workouts in such a way that I'm able to, almost like a game of Tetris, fit my workouts in through the blocks and the holes in my schedule. The hardest part for me, especially as I've gotten a little bit older, I'm 59 years old now, is my sleep cycle is just a wreck. And there's no way to fix that in my career. But turning around back to days after that, after those circadian rhythms reset, is incredibly difficult. But I find it actually, I've had an enormous amount of support. My family supports me. My wife is an incredibly supportive partner. She's an elite runner, so she gets it. And that's really helpful. So she understands if I have to prioritize a workout or something like that. And so that's been incredibly grateful. And emergency medicine docs, one of the reasons I wanted to be an emergency medicine doctor is when I was a resident, I looked at the ER docs and I was like, those are my tribe. These are guys out climbing mountains and going surfing on weekends and traveling. They are work hard, play hard sort of
people.
Folks. Yeah. And I was like, that's my tribe. So that's one of the reasons I love emergency medicine, full stop. But I liked the doctors the best as well when I was trying to pick what specialty I wanted to go into. And so my group, 40 EM docs, man, they're invested in my training too. After a race, I'll get texts from everybody. Hey, what were your watts like? What was your heart rate? How'd you do? Did you beat so-and-so who's racing, and so they're invested in it too. And so they get it. And so I just have an enormous support system, and I'm very fortunate, just incredibly lucky to have that kind of system.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's challenging though. There are days where, I have to work a night shift and then on the way home, go by the pool and swim 3K or something like that. And that can be a bit of a chafe.
Yeah. But you still get it done though, which I love about you. What were you doing with your nutrition before learning how to do it properly? How did you survive?
Well, I would bonk a lot. I was injured a lot. I was heavier than I thought I should be. I literally was the poster child for when you start to talk about your program, you talk about me and you say, look, you just go in there and wing it. I literally would just eat a bar, drink some Gatorade, have some water. I didn't do any recovery nutrition. My wife and I both are fairly health conscious. We always had a reasonably decent diet, but there was no intentionality to it. My wife is one of those folks who can eat whatever she wants. My son is the same way. They eat whatever they want. They never gain an ounce.
Damn it.
I have a donut and all of a sudden my pants, don't fit. I'm unlucky in that regard. And I had done every diet that has come along in the last 20 years, Atkins. I was convinced that I had to be fat adapted and low carb. And I would do that and I would lose 10 pounds like that and then go on a 10-mile run and bonk at mile 8 to the point where I couldn't even straighten up fully. And I was grumpy and I was cranky. And I could smell the ammonia when I would do a bike ride indoors because I was just burning muscle. It was kind of a disaster, and I was getting injured and I wasn't able to stay healthy for a season. Really, after COVID, I had to defer the races in the latter half of my season in 23 and 24. And then 24, I finally got on board with you. And then I managed to salvage the last half of 2024. And then when 2025 rolled around in the off season, I really rededicated and tore it down to the studs. And I focused on stretching and pliability, mindfulness, sleep hygiene, all that sort of thing. And it's made an enormous amount of difference. And I did drop 12 kilos, which I attribute to your program. It was just absolutely fantastic. and I feel better.
How did you do that? What were the things that you changed to help you go from winging it to then having a clear plan and being able to drop the body fat that you had always aspired to do?
There was a moment that was, I don't want to oversell it, but it was a bit like an epiphany. I was listening to one of I love listening to the Nutrition Academy modules while I'm on a bike or run. I put them on my headphones and I just listen to it. And because I am a captive audience, I literally absorb that material so much better in that environment because I feel like this is part of my training. This is actually a fourth leg of my training. So I really feel like it's two for one, in my opinion. I'm out there pounding the pavement or turning the pedals, and I'm also getting this knowledge, directly injected into my brain. And you talked about how you wanted us to stop thinking about dieting and you want to start thinking about fueling. And that just resonated with me. I was like, yes, that the lights went off. And I said, there's nothing more precious that any of us possess. They're mind, body, and spirit. And we sometimes neglect some of that basic maintenance. And we think about how we treat our bikes. And, we sometimes treat them better than we treat our own bodies.
Yeah.
And I recognized I recognized that I wasn't doing that. I was just sort of eating whatever was available and I was doing okay. And then I said, if I start thinking this is fuel and as a training, part of my training regimen, then I'll be much more intentional and much more mindful. That was sort of the impetus for that change. And that's been an enormous game changer for me personally.
You eat well and you fuel well because you've just had some amazing race results, but then you've still managed to drive some fat loss while also improving performance, which is like the holy grail for every triathlete, right? Improve performance and drive some fat loss. So what are some of the main things that you did that you can attribute to that?
I think it's one of your first modules in this recovery nutrition. I was never really thinking about eating or drinking anything after. I was like, my stomach's a little unsettled after I train, so I'm just going to go take a nap or lay on the sofa for a few hours. And now, as soon as I get done my workout, I have my recovery meal. And I think that's been probably the thing that has been the springboard for me to be intentional and mindful. I certainly eat a lot more fruits and vegetables just because you sort of pound that into us. There's no choice about that. And I make sure, it's great. And I make sure that I get my protein numbers met, which sometimes I will neglect. It's easy, especially in my environment in the hospital. Paradoxically, there's a lot of bad food in the hospital. I don't know what it is, but there's a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of sugar. And that's just an easy thing in the middle between patients. I don't always have time to meal prep. I'm a terrible meal prepper. I'm just not good at that. And there's a whole wing of your academy that I watch and listen, and I just don't have that skill set yet. Yeah, I know that's going to be a goal for 2026. We'll see how it goes.
I like that.
It's easy to fall into that trap of just grabbing something quick, carbohydrate boost, get that insulin and dopamine hit, and then move on. But then you're going to have the inevitable crash. But with the recovery nutrition as the first step that I really took, that was the first major change that I made when I joined TNA. It was, I'm going to start doing this recovery meal. And that sort of led to a domino effect where I began to become more intentional about meals in general. And then, of course, the holy grail for me as an athlete and a competitive one was to now fuel the races because I had always winged it. I have some incredible disaster stories to tell you that you would grind your teeth if I told you, like my first long course triathlon, how I went with a single bottle of Gatorade for the entire 56-mile bike ride and then walked the entire half marathon.
You are not the only triathlete that's done that ever.
I know.
It happens all the time, unfortunately, but I'm hoping to change that.
Right. One athlete at a time.
One athlete at a time.
Right.
So you've recently done a full distance event and then backed it up really quickly with a 70.3. So Ironman Maryland in September was a standout for you. And then the sub 4-hour marathon at the end of that just astounds me, to bring you home with a 65-minute PB. And then backing that up with a 5-hour 70.3 at Wilmington, North Carolina. How did you do that? Like, you can't do that with shit nutrition. So how much of that came from getting all of your nutrition sorted?
I attribute my entire season to this two-pronged change that I made. One, losing some weight, and just, from a pure physics standpoint, think about how much money we'll spend to save 100 grams on a bike, and then if I could drop 12 kilos, that's just going to be an enormous benefit. And, we talk about watts and aero, but speed is the ultimate really variable. In a race, you want to get from point A to point B as quickly as you possibly can. Watts are obviously critical. So I think losing the weight was an enormous improvement. I just felt instead of what the race course is doing to me, which I would, about halfway through the bike, I would start to flag a bit. And I would start to think, okay, I've got to really focus on these watts, got to focus on my turnover, my heart rate. I've got to save something for the run. And I would start to have this, not anxiety, but I would start to feel the race start to weigh on me. And last year at Maryland and then at North Carolina, at that halfway point in the bike, it's not what the course is doing to me. It's what I'm going to do to this course, because I feel amazing right now. I'm turning these pedals over, and I know I'm going to have that fast turnover on the run when I hop off the bike. And the first half of that marathon at Maryland, I was flying through that. I did think about you during that race, because I did suffer the second half of the marathon because I just didn't have the best plan on how to fuel the second half of the marathon. I don't like carrying things when I run. I just don't like anything in my hands. I may have to get over that, because I struggled to fuel, and I had a gel at about mile 13 and it just sat right in my stomach, and I started to suffer a little bit. I slowed considerably over the second half of that marathon. And so I brought that knowledge into Wilmington, and I changed what I did a little bit. I fueled a little bit more aggressively on the bike with terms of solid food. And then when I got off the bike at Wilmington, I threw down a really, really fast half marathon for me. And I always had left that race feeling like, boy, I'm a faster runner than these splits are too slow for me. I should be running faster. And again, I would get to the halfway point in the run. I would try to get into that extra gear, and there was nothing there. I just never had it. And last October, when I reached back for something deeper, I had it. There was stuff there, and I was racing instead of just letting the course sort of unfold in front of me. I was really, really intentional about what I was trying to do. And I think that's all because I had fueled much better, and I'd learned some valuable lessons. And I made some mistakes, which I learned from, which you had told me I was going to make. You told all of us. You told us about maybe don't use special needs as much or depend on that as much. And of course I went to special needs and spent about 6 minutes in there. And I could hear you in the back of my mind saying, and I learned, but so in addition to teaching us how to fuel, just some basic logistic stuff. I'm not the best bike handler. So sitting up and reaching behind to grab a bottle is a problem for me. I don't like doing that because I know it's going to slow me down. I'm going to come out of aero. I don't want to do that. I'm not a great bike handler as much as I try to work on that. So just some practical tips like getting a between the arms bottle, which I had never done before. I put it on this year. It made a huge difference, right? So it's not all spreadsheets and nutrition. There's some really practical tips that help you. They're all predicated and under the nutrition umbrella, but really just some practical tips like a between the arms bottle made a huge difference for me. I was able to speed fill that thing, and I just popped up, filled it, and that way I was able to make sure I met all my nutrition numbers. Because in the old days, I would sometimes be like, I don't really want to sit up right now. I'm feeling pretty good. And then I wouldn't get the nutrition that I needed, and I would fall behind, and then it would sort of snowball.
I think that's a benefit of working with somebody that has experience in the sport. And I always say that for whoever contacts me for help, if somebody is looking for some support as a team athlete or a boxer or a dancer, I'm like, I'm not your gal. You need to find somebody that has done that sport and has worked with that sport so that they can understand the nuances of all of those logistics, because that's really important. And I hear that feedback a lot from athletes that have worked with somebody else potentially that doesn't really understand what we do and what it's like to get up at 4 a.m. every morning and train, and how you feel after you've done a 6-hour ride and all those sorts of things, because it can make a big difference. One of the things you share with me all the time is that your legs aren't getting any younger, but you are going so much faster.
I know. It's been extraordinary.
What do you think has been the biggest game changer for you? Like you've mentioned getting your race nutrition sorted, recovery nutrition, which a lot of people think they have dialed, but when they actually understand what they need for them, they don't. Is there one big game changer, or do you think you have many?
There are many. I think it is multifactorial. One nice thing for me is, knock on wood, I haven't been injured in 15 months. And I think some of that is because I have rededicated myself to nutrition, but also stretching and pliability and making sure that 2 days of the week, I don't necessarily do a run, bike, or swim, but I'll spend that entire session on flexibility, yoga, mindfulness, making sure that I'm doing strength workouts twice a week, literally strength workouts, not doing 10 push-ups and calling it a day, but being in the gym and pushing some weight. So I've gotten stronger. I think that's made me a more durable athlete. And that's allowed me to train the way I know I can, as opposed to taking days off or weeks off from injury or illness. And for really 2 years, I was just dancing between the raindrops with regards to injuries and illness. And since I've changed at the beginning of last season, knock on wood, I haven't missed a single session because of illness or injury. And that's huge.
Great.
I mean, for especially for a 60-year-old, kind of fair to Midland, pudgy, sort of cranky, doctor, it's been remarkable.
Just that training availability
absolutely
is excellent. Like that is the goal, right? We don't want to be taking a back seat from being sick or injured because that's going to take us back 6 months. If you can have really good training availability, then you'll build and adapt and get fitter and faster from that training block. So that's great. Fingers crossed that we keep going in that direction. Like think of what you can achieve. How do you fit the TNA program into your life? You have got no spare hours in a day. You said before that you listen while you're training, which is a great strategy, but how do you literally fit? You need probably 1 to 2 hours a week to get the most out of the TNA program. Where do you find that time, Ed?
I have a 30-minute commute, so I listen to your podcast on the way to work and on the way back. I listen to it on the bike. If I have a long bike ride, it's just perfect for me to queue up a couple of sessions, and I listen to them over and over again because each time I listen, I get something out of it that I didn't get before. So I do incorporate it into my training. I feel like that's dedicated time anyhow. And so that's been the best way for me because I will say that was a challenge for me initially. When I started, I was having a hard time fitting it all in. I just didn't have the bandwidth, and I kept a vestige of that. Okay, nutrition's fine. I need to do it, but biking, running, swimming, that's where I need to spend my energy. And then I gradually realized that I really have to change things if I'm going to be successful. If I want to have the type of competitive career that I would like and that I think I am capable of, I've got to start changing the way I do things. And so I've got to spend more time stretching and working harder on my sleep. I need to get to bed earlier. I need to improve my diet. I need to improve my race and training fueling. I need to make sure I'm recovering. So it was pretty multifaceted. And I'm not sure I'm answering your question any differently, but I think it took me a while to embrace the concepts. And once I did, the first race I did was a sprint, and I had done it the year before, and I took 5 minutes off of sprint time, which is a pretty significant amount of time. That was amazing. I mean, it was the same course, exact same run up, same training module. I'm a tri-dot aficionado, and so I didn't change much with regards to the type of training. In fact, my volume was probably lower this year than it was the year before in terms of just miles on the bike, miles on the road, and time in the pool and time in open water. I think I probably had maybe as much as 20% less, but I had better results. It's just an amazing program, and I've been so much better for it.
Thank you. I've really tried to build the knowledge strategically so I don't overwhelm people, but also make it so accessible because I know that you're all busy. Like you are like up here busy, but every triathlete is busy when we're trying to train for 3 sports in a week. We're working, we've got family, we've got all this stuff going on. So it's not meant to be this big burden. It's taking a little bit of time for yourself and investing in your high performance engine, right? Your body, this thing that's going to actually carry you to the finish line. It's not your bike, it's your body. And reaping the rewards for years to come. And I feel like you've only just gotten started. One question I have for you is you're a doctor, right? You're a clever dude. How come you couldn't figure out your nutrition yourself?
That is a great question. And I don't know the answer to that. I have some thoughts about the way that we approach health and wellness in the United States, at least. That's my environment. And I think we don't do a really good job of teaching people how to care for themselves very well. We're a sick culture rather than a wellness culture in many ways. And I see this at the bedside. As you know, I'm immersed in patients who have, mental illness and trauma and disease. And so much of it I see is in some ways preventable. But by the time I see them, that ship has sailed. And I think, I grew up in that environment. I grew up, finish your plate. We have bacon and eggs every day for breakfast. We just eat an unhealthy diet. We eat a lot of fast food. Certainly I was like that in my youth. I was 20 years old. I was still playing sports and training, but I ate whatever I wanted. I didn't spend a whit thinking about what I'm putting into my body. And I think that that's a cultural thing. And I suspect that it took me a while to unlearn some of that. And I finally, I got hit over the head with it enough that I finally had to say, I'm doing this wrong. I'm doing something wrong. And as a scientist, let me objectively look at this. And that was one of the things that I really loved about your program when I first began to dip my toes into it, because I was like, here's somebody who is a scientist first and foremost. He's going to present objective data and presents it in a way that is accurate. Hey, look, this is what the data is showing us right now. This is not settled science, but we think this is the way we need to go. And so let's experiment and let's dip our toes into this and let's see. And obviously there's a lot of settled science in nutrition and what have you. And you're at the leading edge of that for all of us. And I just said, I want to hitch my wagon to that group because I think they're knocking it out of the park. And I want to be part of that. Yeah,
I do love how we get nerdy in Power Hour sessions, and you often send me, curly questions or research papers and stuff like that as a fellow science-backed practitioner. Do you have a favorite nerdy nutrition moment inside TNA?
I figure out how many calories I have per bottle, right, of my sports drink. And then I'll mark, okay, this is how many sips I need to take to get to this Sharpie marker. And I have to do that every 15 minutes. And it's kind of pathetic and sad in a way that I spend so much time doing that. But I will say, I think anybody who races triathlons, short course, long course, anything in between, we have anxiety. We have race anxiety where, can I do this? What if the swim is choppy? What if it's not wetsuit legal? What if I get a flat tire?
Yeah.
And so we're consumed with those anxieties. And I was no different. I would not sleep very well the night before race. But now when I go to bed the night before race, I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to get 90 grams of carbs every hour for 6 hours? And then how am I going to translate that when I have to get off the bike and run, and what's on the course and what am I going to use? And that actually, in a way, makes me more in control, and I lose some of that anxiety. And I'm like, no, I am in control. This is what I can control. I can't control the weather. I can't control the other competitors. I can't control the road conditions, but I can control my nutrition, what I choose to fuel my body with. And you've sort of given me, and given all of us, I think in your academy, the sort of the keys to do that and the skill set. And I think it's an incredible gift, and it's really paid off enormous dividends for me. And I suspect everybody who's been in part, because I know all the people that have, that are my colleagues in the Triathlon Nutrition Academy, and I see their results too. And it's been wonderful.
We do talk about how many mils the volume is of your mouthful. We get into the nuances of that. That's what Ed is talking about in terms of his sips to get to this line and stuff. Like we go deep. And I thank you for working in the metric system with me. I know that
Absolutely.
We have a lot of Americans in the program and you guys do Imperial, but science is in the metric system, right?
Yeah, it's the only sensible system of measurement in the universe, and why we haven't adopted it. We're stubborn in America. We are stubborn. We like to do things our own way, even to our own detriment. And the imperial system is a prime example.
Yes, you heard that from an American mouth too. I did
Absolutely.
not feed that to him.
Go metric.
So, Ed, what's next for you?
I'm just starting training for 2026. I have some high goals. We'll see how they go. I'm going to do 2 70.3s. I've signed up for Maine in July, and then I'll go back to Wilmington. It's my favorite. It was my first long course, my first Ironman back in the old days when they used to do the full distance there. So I'm going to do Maine and North Carolina, and I'll sprinkle in a couple of other races. I'll run a couple of road races with my wife, and I'm thinking about maybe trying for a Boston qualifier if I want to do that. I'm not a marathoner. It's not really my wheelhouse. I like triathlon better, but a Boston qualifier would be kind of a bucket list. So I'm going to give it a go.
And you could do it together. It could be a family affair.
Well, she's fast. So I try not to train with her. She just leaves me in the dust.
Maybe we have to do something to help you there.
I know. Tripper, something like that.
No, don't do that.
No. Sorry, just kidding. Can we edit that? I don't want that to make that.
Don't send her this episode link to listen to. And are you going to join us for Santa Cruz 2027?
I'm scared to fly with my bike. I have a friend who went to Marbella and they lost her bike, and God, that sounds awful. Shit. I know.
You could drive
cross country.
It's a long way. Can meet you in the flesh.
That would be lovely. I would look forward to that. Although I'm worried I might be disappointing in person, and I feel like I would have some high standards to uphold. And I think I'm a C- TNA student, just like in school always. I've always been at that weak end of the bell curve, so I feel like I would cause you to grind your teeth a bit.
No way.
Yeah.
Look at what you have achieved. You are a very high achieving person. You need to stop for a second and reflect on your achievements because they're amazing. Before we just keep barreling forwards into the next thing.
I know that is true. I think that's an important part of it. And I do try to focus on mindfulness, but I'm always going 100 miles an hour at work. And sometimes I do need to slow down a little bit.
It's how you do fit so much in.
Yeah.
What would you say to a really time poor triathlete listening right now and they think that, they're just too busy to work on their nutrition and get that sorted?
I empathize. It's difficult. And you have to prioritize and make decisions and be okay with whatever decisions you make and say that the consequences of how I plan my work week or how I plan my month of training are under my control. And I can address that in any way, shape, or form that I want. But I'm not going to violate, or I'm not going to rob Peter to pay Paul. I'm not going to have work suffer, or I'm not going to have my relationships or my family life suffer. And that is a challenge. And you have to be creative about how you do that. And I think some mindfulness and some mapping out of that and planning is crucial. I mean, I do this all the time. I used to miss workouts because I would just be late for work and I'd be like, man, I didn't bring my backpack. Now, the night before I go to bed, if I'm going for a swim session, my bag is packed. I have all my swim kit. I throw it in my car. And so I'm ready to go. And so there's no excuse. And I just take that extra few minutes. And, when I come off a night shift, that's when I head to the pool or head to the open water, and I have all my kit ready to go. So there's no excuse. I can't be like, oh man, I got to drive all the way home and then I got to go back to the pool. The heck with that. I'll just go to bed. Because I'm tired at that point, but getting in the pool, I find after a night shift is incredibly therapeutic for me.
Yeah, it's refreshing.
I feel like, and it's also incredibly refreshing in a mindful way because we walk with our patients through some pretty awful times, and that can take some moral injury, and it's a privilege to care for other humans who are sick. And I absolutely love what I do. There's a cost to that a little bit, and just getting out and training and the hypnotic nature of swimming or turning pedals, it's just incredibly reinvigorating in a lot of ways. So, I think it's hard if you're so time crunched. Try to do your best to plan and be okay with yourself. Give yourself some grace. Understand that there's only so much you can do in a 24-hour period, and make sure you're not losing sleep or maybe pushing yourself through a workout that you're not ready for. It's okay to, pack it in. If you're not feeling it, give yourself that time to recover. Your body needs it. Your body's telling you, hey, it's time to slow down, pump the brakes a bit.
Yeah. Good advice. It is really what you value, isn't it? And sometimes you just need to prioritize what you do value. And for me, I value nutrition and health so highly, but not everyone does that, I realize.
Well, I certainly didn't for 3/4 of my life, but now I'm a convert now.
You drank the Kool-Aid.
I have drunk the Kool-Aid. Although Kool-Aid is not a great fueling source, I think. I'm trying to think what I would drink instead. I like Tailwind.
Gatorade.
Some Tailwind. Yeah, Gatorade, they took that away from us in Ironman, which is frustrating.
It may come back. Depends who's got more money to throw at Ironman to have their product on course, really.
Right.
Well, Ed, thank you so much for joining me to share your story. I know that it's going to resonate with so many people. You're a very highly functional human, but you've achieved some amazing things when you've actually stopped for a second and prioritized your nutrition and your education. And you were telling me earlier that you now preach what I teach you to your patients in the hospital.
Absolutely.
Like it's come full circle.
I absolutely do. I spend, and I'm an emergency room doctor. So people come in with their bone sticking out of their ankle. They don't necessarily want to hear about diet and sleep hygiene, but I tell them, and I try to package it in a way that's very positive. Not a lecture or anything like that. I'm like, look, I will tell you, you'll have a better sex drive. You'll feel better. Your clothes will fit better. Let's just do this. You'll be healthier. And, their eyes glaze over, and then I start talking about prescriptions and they're like, oh, great, I can get a pill. And that's part of our culture. And I'm working hard to try to, in my small corner of the universe, to try to change that a little bit. But I will tell you my favorite phrase that I've shamelessly stolen from you is health span. Health span. I talk to people. Yes, I'm like, look, you can be 80 years old, but if you're bedridden, moribund with, lymphedema and your blood pressure's through the roof and you've had a stroke, and that's living, but I'm not sure that's the way you want to live. So let's talk about living a healthy health span. And I've sort of changed that. And that's become part of my standard scripted spiel I give to my patients. And I think it does resonate with them because I think we all want that. We all want to be able to play with our grandkids and be, living our life to the fullest, even when we're 80, 90 years old. Heck, the only way I'm going to Kona is if I live long enough to be the only dude in my age group, in my opinion. So I'm hoping to be that guy. I just want somebody to be on, I want to be on a Ironman
You can get a
podcast.
legacy spot. All you've got to do is do 12 full distance races, right?
Yeah, that sounds painful. Yeah, we'll see. maybe.
You're on that road. Well, I don't think health span is it's definitely not my word, but I'm glad that
I give you
it's
credit.
stuck with you and that's sticky because it is important. And a lot of people haven't really thought about that. Like we want to live long, but we want to be functional in that life too. So that's one of the things that I do bang on about inside the academy, or anyone that will listen, any of my athletes, to try and get them to be healthier human beings as well as high performance triathletes as well.
It reached me. When I heard that, I just felt like that's something I need to start incorporating into my own practice.
Thank you so much, Ed. If you want to come and join us and be as much of a weapon and high performance athlete as Ed is or has become, then make sure you check out the Triathlon Nutrition Academy program at dietitianapproved.com/academy. Thank you, Ed.
Bye, guys. Thanks very much.